one of the most significantly spiritual, significant people you've ever met or you've never heard of, right? There was this guy in the early 1900s, real late 1800s. He was a tent revivalist. He would go out across America preaching. His name was Mordecai Ham, and that ain't who I'm telling you about. But anyway, he was preaching 1934 in Charlotte, North Carolina at a tent revival. And there was these two 14-year-old boys, and they heard the commotion of the tent revival, and saw the big crowd. And they heard the preaching of the love of the Father, and they thought, I'm going to go in and check that place out. I want to see what they're up to. So these two boys, they roll in, and they look around. They look kind of in the back, and they didn't see any seats, nowhere to sit down. And they thought, well, we better get on out then if we don't want to stand up. So they eased out the door, and there was this one man standing in the back of the tent there. And as these two boys started walking away, he hollered, boys, where are y'all going? Where are y'all going? He was the usher that was helping people in. And he said, where are y'all going? They said, well, we can't find a seat. We don't want to disturb nobody standing up in the back. So we're just going to go on home. He said, no, I want y'all to come in. I'll help find y'all seats. So he did. And they sat down. And that night, them two 14-year-old boys went up to the altar and gave their life to Christ. One of them's name was Billy Graham. And the other one's name, I can't remember his name now, but he was Billy Graham's best friend that helped him set up all the revivals and the preachings that he did across the United States. So I wanted I like to open with a little story. Nobody knows this usher's name that quite literally changed the lives of these two boys for sure, which then took the message that God gave them into the world. And that usher, nobody knows his name to this day, quite literally changed the world with one simple action. How many times in our lives do we get one chance and we think it's so insignificant, but yet we could be changing the world and not even know it? So there's a lot of new faces here. A lot of people don't know me. My name's Jessie Evans. I'm going to start this morning with a little bit of my story and where I come from, because a lot of new faces, and I've asked people, they don't know my story. They would love to hear it, right? They hear me every now and again get up here and speak. So I was born in 1989. My mother was she had a tumor, and I was really small when I was in the womb, and when I was born, I was really small, and they had me in NICU, and there was family across the nation praying and lady fasting for me that I would grow up and heal and be a good strong boy, and here I am, right, 36 years later. 29, I'm sorry. I'm on my 7th year of my 7th anniversary of my 29th birthday. So she prayed for me, and I grew up, and I started growing. My mom and dad, they took me to church my whole life. I was thinking about this driving the other day. I do a lot of that. But anyway, a lot of driving, not thinking. I can remember as a little boy, and I'm not going to tell you right, but I know where I was at when this happened. I was in the bathtub, believe it or not. I was little. I don't know how old I was, but I called my Aunt Wilma when I got out of the bathtub, and I said, I felt to call the Lord on my life. And I don't know if she even remembers that, but I remember it to this day. I knew I was laying in that bathtub, and usually we took showers, but I was looking at the faucet, and I can remember feeling in my heart that I had a call on my life. And I was little. So anyway, I go to church. 1998 rolls around, and I'm going to Bible camp at Beulah Land Bible Camp. They don't do it no more. And I asked Jesus to come into my heart, 1998. I could show you the place I was sitting on the basketball court when it happened. It was late evening, and I said the sinner's prayer and asked Jesus to come into my heart. In 1999, it was Father's Day, and my dad, he grew up in Saltville right along the river. So we was all the time fishing, canoeing, running the river. We'd mow my granny and pa's yard, and then we was hitting the river. Father's Day, I said, Dad, I want to go canoeing, but I don't want you to take a fishing pole. Because he'd take a fishing pole, and he'd hang me up in under a tree somewhere along a fall down, and it was my job to keep the canoe in the position fighting the current while he fished. And so I said, Dad, I don't want you to take a fishing pole. I just want to go canoeing. He said, all right, let's do it. So off we go canoeing. We're paddling up a river, and I see a group of people alongside the river. I said, Dad, what are they doing? He said, I don't know. Let's go check it out. So we roll over there and hop out. He knew some of the folks in the crowd, and he started asking around, and he said, they're having a baptism. I said, well, I want to be baptized. I had on a pair of bibbed overalls and hiking boots. I wasn't planning to be baptized. I said, I want to be baptized. He said, well, let me ask him if it's all right. So he went over to his buddy. I don't know the feller's name. He could tell you. And yeah, it's fine. So he goes down to my granny and Paul's, gets the family. I get baptized. And I can remember after I got baptized, and Doug Sullins, you probably remember this. Boy, I was walking on the water, buddy. I was high as a Georgia pine. And my dad, he was real close with everybody that he worked with up at Compressors. And we'd run into somebody, and I remember running into Doug Sullins. And old Doug, he's a catbird. And Dad, he said, tell Doug what happened. Tell Doug what happened. I said, all right, Doug. I said, boy, I got baptized. I said, I went down in that water, and my heart was dirty and black. But when I come up, it was white as snow. So as a kid, I can remember this. I remember that like it was yesterday, telling everybody I went down dirty and I come up white as snow. I've been baptized. It was 1999. Well, that's all well and good, right? Till I started running with the world, and I turned, I don't know, I was young. I was young. 14, 15, 16, 17. I had it licked by the time I was 18. Boy, I was getting married then. We met my wife. My dad and her dad, Jeff. They worked together our whole life. And Jeff, he would tell Kristen, he would say, "Oh, you need to ask that boy Jessie out." And she'd say, "Ooh, Jesse Evans, no way." Hey, it's the truth. I don't hold back. I ain't got nothing to be ashamed of. She'd say, "Ooh, no way. I ain't going out with him." "Oh, that's a good boy. You need to go out with him." I never spoke to the woman a day in my life. I would stand there. They would meet each other at Walmart, running around grocery shopping. And me and Kristen would stand there and look at each other. We never even spoke to one another. Our senior year of high school, chance would have it, we started dating. And boy, I fell madly in love. I remember my Uncle Eddie calling me. I was on a date, and I was at Food City Gas and Go. And Uncle Eddie called me, and he said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Boy, I'm going on a date, man." He said, "Is she pretty?" I said, "Boy, she's the prettiest one yet." He said, "Oh, I can't wait to meet her." I said, "Oh, you'll get your chance." So anyway, we ended up, we was young, 18. I turned 18, and we had it going on. And I asked her to marry me. I worked life's crazy. Got held up. I joined, and I always wanted to go into military. Now, this is where life gets wild. I always wanted to go into the military. And my papa was in the military. And as a kid, I would sit and he'd tell us these stories of Germany and traveling across the Eastern Front, and I said, I'm going to do that one day. That's going to be me. I'll carry that flag across the front lines. So I turned 17. I took my ASVAB test and everything, and with the Marine Corps. I was going to go to the Marine Corps. I was going to be a hard charger, hooah. And so it's doing all this with the Marine Corps. And my best friend I was going into basic training with, Mark Nash Jr., he called me one day. I was picking taters in the garden. He said, "Jesse, have you looked into the National Guard?" I said, "No, I ain't looked into that. I'm going to the Marine Corps, man. I want that sword." He said, "Well, be the sword." He said, "They giving $20,000 sign-on bonus." I said, "I'll see you at the recruiting station this evening. Let me get done digging taters, and I'll be there. Show me where to sign." Well, I was 17, so I knew what I was going to do. And I'm one of these people, boy, I get my mind made up, I'm going to do it. I get an itch, I'm going to scratch. And that's always been a problem of mine. Paul writes and talks about the thorn in his side. Well, that can really be a thorn in my side. So I go to my dad. I said, "I'm going to join the National Guard. I need you to sign right here." And he said, "All right, have you prayed about it?" No, but this is what I want to do. He said, "Are you sure?" I said, "Yeah, it's what I want to do." So he signed the paper. Well, my mom had to sign too. I told her it was a medical release. She didn't even know she was signing for me to go in the military. I told her it was a medical release. And I said, "They just, it's something they can get the doctors to get my medical reports and stuff." Okay. So I went on, I joined. I ended up cutting my thumb off the last day of work, and I didn't go to basic training. Mark Nash went on without me, and I got healed up. I went to basic training. I come home, and right in this meantime, right, with my thumb dangling, I'm getting healed up. You know, me and Kristen, we officially, right, we're getting married, man. We're going to plan this up. I'd gotten a pretty good job at Bristol Metals, making good money. I was saving money, spending money, partying. We going to get married. I went off of basic training. Come back in 2009. We got married. I graduated basic training March 2009. We come back. I got married. I just turned 20 May 9th. I got laid off the end of April. I come home from basic training in March. I got laid off. Here's how I'll get to this point. So I got laid off, right? I come home. I done told the woman we getting married. We getting married. I got a little nest egg built up, so I paid up some rent, got my rent paid up, and we get married, my dad, and rightfully so, man. I mean, look, dude, we ain't got nothing. Nothing. We ain't got nothing. I ain't even got a job. I'm painting houses on the side, just doing whatever I can to make me a little bit of pocket change. Dad says, boy, y'all might want to wait. Wait. Wait on what? That's what broke a wagon. Let's go. We're going to the chapel. So May 23rd, we got married. And Kristen worked part-time at Pal's and went to college. I didn't have a job. And the next week, we was on a cruise ship headed to Nassau down there. Boy, we was living it up. I had a brand new 2008 Harley-Davidson Street Glide. I mean, we had a boat. I bought a boat, had a Caravel boat. My rent was paid up for 4 months. The fridge was stocked full of my favorite beverage bought by someone, not me, because I'm not 21, right? I'm running with the world, okay? I get deployed. My 1-year wedding, we knew the deployment was coming, right? That's in the wind. So we're doing all this training. 1 year, May 23rd, 2010. I called home, and Kristen and Jeff had took Kristen a card and some flowers for me. And they said, y'all may want to call home. So I call home, and I said, we're going. I said, happy anniversary, I love you. Now, I remember we got a 4-day pass just sometime before this. And if you've never been there, you don't know what I'm talking about. If you've been there, you know what I'm talking about. But I remember the last time I hugged my family. And I told myself then, remember, I'm not one to just sit on the sidelines. I ain't one to just go get the T-shirt and say I wore it and bring it home. Man, I won't end the fight. Put me in it. So I remember hugging my family, and I told myself, it's the last time you're going to hug them, so you better make it count. And I remember the last hug I gave Kristen, and I did not want to let go. I remember the smell of my granny's hair to this day when I hugged her. And that curly, she's a little younger then, and her hair still stood up. And that curly, coarse hair touching my cheek. And I said, I ain't coming back, so let's make this one count. So I get on that bird, right, May 23rd, and we fly over. I get to Iraq. I do some training in Kuwait, and I get to be... one thing in the military that I always wanted to do, I always wanted to shoot the best. My papa was the best shot to ever cracked a pistol or rifle one across the Mississippi. He could shoot it. He could drive nails, and I wanted to drive nails. So my goal was to be the best rifleman. Any weapon they put in my hand, I was going to qualify expert with, and I did. I did that. Well, I did it too good. I become designated marksman. So I had to go through this course in Kuwait for designated marksman, and they put me on personal security detail. So when people real high ranking like Major Mike would go out, it was us lowly folk that got to jump in front of the bullets to keep him from getting shot, and I ate it up. I loved it, man. Hey, they wasn't nothing better than kicking somebody out of the way in the middle of the street. Like, come on. And so I run 86 missions outside the wire when I was in Iraq. 86 combat missions outside the wire. I run at night, I run during the day, I run personal security detail. I escorted prisoners from Baghdad down to Fob Kalsu. I mean, I was in the muck, in the mire. I was running with it. And now listen at this. I come home from Iraq, and what happened? Shoo, it got rough. It got rough. I started suffering from PTSD. I come home and I went to work. Luckily, they called me back to work, and went to work, and I was working, and I was moving up in work, and I was just struggling. I had so much hate in my heart. I hated everything, everyone. I wanted to fight. I could drink and fight, and just, you didn't want to be around me, right? But yet, in His mercy, I don't get it. This is what blows me away about the good God of heaven, is in His mercy, even yet, I'm running with the world in my rebellion, right? And I'm moving up in work. I'm moving up in position, right? This is great. I'm running with the world and got it by the horns. Moving up, right? I'm not even looking for God. I'm not praying. Nothing. Kendall comes along. We end up buying our first house, 2011. We come home. I bought my first house. Had a brand new Harley. I drove all the way to Buffalo, New York, and I bought this boat that would just blow you away. Literally, it was bad. And I had it all right there at my fingertips. And the company I took in a position and was really doing good. And the company said, "Well, we're shutting down, but we got something for you. It's okay." You know how they do, tickle your ears. All right. Kendall would have been just a few months old at this time. They took all my seniority, put me on second shift, and me and Kristen, after the checkbook was balanced, was living on $25 a week. We didn't even have money to buy groceries, man. That was gas money. That was everything money. Thank God for credit cards, because we'd have starved to death. Seriously, and I wasn't about to go ask somebody for money. I'll get it. I'm telling you, I'm hard-headed. So I'm at rock bottom. Has anybody ever made a mistake? You've been living in rebellion. You're in that season. You've fallen from grace, right? You know there is a God, but you feel like He's a million miles away and you're ashamed. But yet God, in His mercy, refuses to take His hand off of you. And He still hunts you down. Folks, if I told y'all some of the craziest stuff I've done, you wouldn't believe it. You would say there's no way that man is standing up there right now. And grace is still keeping me. And He's still pouring His mercy out on me in all of this junk and trying to pull me back into the kingdom of God. All right, now remember, when I was a kid, I felt it. Right now at this point, I don't know, we're up in 2012 by now, 13 time frame. Okay? I am in the muck and the mire, and yet He still loves me enough to want to keep pulling me out. So one night, I'd had enough. Man, I don't know. I was probably liquored up too. I don't know, but it was done. I was finished. I hated everything. I was so hateful. I could smile and laugh and play and pretend. But on the inside, at the core, I was a broken mess. Well, I'd go to my dad, and me and Dad's always been close up until this point, and it was my fault. I would go to my dad, and I would say, "Dad, I'm struggling, man. I'm struggling." And he'd say, "You need to give it to God. You need to give it to God." And that's about all he'd say, you need to give it to God. Doug, you know how He is. Hey, let's step back and think about this a minute. He'd say, "You need to give it to God." Well, to me, that was my dad saying, "Look, boy, go over there and give it to God, and then come over here and we'll talk about it," right? He was ignoring me. But really, he was giving me the best advice a man could ever give his son or anybody could ever give anybody. He'd say, "Give it to God." So this night, I've been around the world, folks. I can't remember how many miles. Major Mike, you may know more. How many miles you run in basic training. I can't remember I didn't even know I could run that much, really. But when we ran a lot in the morning, and I would always look at the stars. And those stars was my connection to home, right? I would look, oh man, they see that same one at home. So this night, I'm at rock bottom. Kristen and Kendall's asleep in bed. And I've fought it as long as I can fight it. I go to the safe. And when I was 16, I bought this pistol off a boy in a parking lot up there. Anyway, highly illegal. It was a Dan Wesson 1911 45. They don't make many of them. Dan Wesson was part of Smith & Wesson. They split off. Dan Wesson went and made his own thing, and they're really high-dollar guns. And I acquired this thing at a very young age, all right? And I've got this pistol in there, and I said, you know what? This is it, man. I got a pretty good life insurance policy. I ain't doing nothing but making them two miserable. I'm done with this. I'm done with this. God don't care no more about me. So I went to that safe, and I got that pistol out, and I loaded it, and there's a window there where I'm talking about, and I kind of walked around there, and I got my phone, and my friend, I typed this message out, and I told him where I was going to be at, but I didn't hit send, because I knew as soon as you do, they're going to be burning you up. You know, they're going to be knocking the door down. I didn't need none of that, right? I done made my mind up. It's okay. Just let me go do this. So I typed the message. I didn't hit send. I'm standing there, and I'm looking out that window. And that pistol, there's a love seat sitting here, and I set that pistol right there. And I was looking up, and I said, Paul, if you was here, you would understand. You would get me. And I was looking at them stars. And I started hearing this voice in my head, and he said, give it to God. Just give it to God. Just give it to God. And I stopped, and I could hear it on repeat, man. It was like he was standing right on my shoulder saying this. Give it to God. Just give it to God. What are you doing? Just give it to God. I'm looking at them stars. And I said, this is when it happened right here, folks. This is when the party starts. I said, God, if you're real and you really love me, I need you now more than I've ever needed you in my life. And I'm here to tell you this morning that the man that hung on the middle cross himself walked in my front door that night, and he held my hand. And I don't know, honest to God, I couldn't tell you what much I prayed after that. All I know is he come in and he said, I love you, and I'm going to take this. So don't really know. I said, God, I need you now more than I've ever needed you in my life. And I don't know really what I prayed after that. I got up. I'm pretty sure it was the next morning. I got up, and see, we was kind of coming to church a little here and there, you know. We'd dedicated Kendall and stuff, and we was, you know, right, but boy, my heart just wasn't in it. My heart wasn't right. And I said, Kristen, we're going to church. And she said, huh? I said, yeah, let's go. Get that girl ready. We got to get out of here. And I didn't really say much else, really. I was kind of quiet. I come in, I sat right there where Jim and them sitting. And I bet you Todd Pete couldn't have strummed the first string of that guitar. And I run up here, and I hit this altar right here, and I didn't come up until Herb was preaching. I mean to tell you, when I tell people I give it to God, I give God everything in my life. Because me, in my flesh, I'm a failure. If it wasn't for God, I would have nothing, I would be nothing, I am nothing. But I got up from that altar, and I went back and I sat down, and I was grinning like a possum. Boy, you couldn't have cut it off my face. And Kristen said, what's the matter with you? And I said, we was in the car at this point. We was crossing a bridge right over here, almost to the red light. And she said, what is the matter with you? And I said, Kristen, honey, I feel like the weight of the world is lifted off of my shoulders. And that's all I said. I didn't tell her what happened. She didn't know what happened to me for a long time, did you? But boy, you could see it. And it's like that song, you know, and I can't remember it without reading the lyrics. But you know, the old me was gone. I mean, literally. It was crazy what God can do and what He did for me. And more so then, right after that happened, than now. I still run into some old boys I'd run around with. You know, I run into one at the gas station the other day. He ain't no better off than he was the day I left him. But and he would say, you know, I'd run into him, he'd say, man, what happened to you? What are you doing nowadays? See, I used to be a drunk, right? That used to be my identity. I used to be a dopehead. I used to be angry. I used to want to fight everything that moved. Hey, if you wanted to go, we would go. It didn't matter. That was who I was. I had so much hate in my heart. I used to live like the devil. I used to party and run. But you know, when this old boy asked me that, I couldn't look at him and say it was a good program I followed. I can't look at him and say I went away to this halfway house that helped me, right? I can't do that. I have to look at that person straight in the eye and say, the good God of heaven, holy and mighty, stepped down off of his throne one night and walked into my house and held my hand, and he said, I love you, I died for you, and I'm going to take you with me. And I followed him. That's the program I followed. And he'll do the same for you this morning right now. That's the crazy thing about it. That's the crazy thing about it. So that happens, right? And then, okay, I go to work with a smile on my face on second shift. I'm going to tell people about Jesus. Hey, I don't know about y'all, but God's got something good for me. I don't know what it is, but it's on the way. It's on the way. I would go to work, right? It was kind of cool because, man, you'll learn one day it's kind of hard to walk away from them bad friends, right? And God knew I'm loyal like an old dog. And if I seen my buddy over there hurting, I was probably going to go with him. And I was still on the milk at this time. I wasn't on the meat. There ain't no way I could have stepped out into the world at this time and carried the cross. I'd have been right there with them again. So God put me on second shift. He said, I'll get you away from them. Go work on second shift. Well, all right. So that's what I did, and I was happy about it. Right? Then I put in with this company that I'd done some work with, and folks, when I tell y'all it was solely by the grace of God I got the job I've got now, I am not an educated man. It's all I could do to have graduated high school, folks. I had to take tutoring for algebra just so I could get my math credit so I could graduate. And I had to take a test that engineers, this guy took it, he's from England, Gareth Smith, been an engineer for 30 years. Took the same test and he failed it and I passed it. You do the math. Come on. I can't do it. I got the job. Kristen, we get little Sadie comes along. I mean, life is just great. Now, let me tell you, there has been some valleys. We've trudged through some serious valleys in the last 10, 11 years. There has been some glorious mountaintops. But it is only by the grace of God in heaven above that I'm standing here this morning to get to tell y'all my story. Now, with that all being said, how are we going to get into the Word? Well, we're going to go to Mark chapter 10, verses 46 through 48. Now, I don't do the fancy slideshows, Alan. I'm sorry, buddy. I appreciate it if you got your Bible on your phone. You can look at that away or if you brought it. But anyway, so I'm going to go to Mark chapter 10, okay? And at this time, Jesus, he's out, it'll tell us here, he's in Jericho, and he's ministering, okay? Mark chapter 10, verses 46 through 48. Then they came to Jericho. This is Jesus and his disciples, and there's a ton of followers with him. They roll into Jericho. As Jesus and his disciples, together with a large crowd, were leaving the city, a blind man, Bartimaeus, that is the son of Timaeus. Now, I'm reading out of the NIV, so I will tell you, there's some different translations here and there, but so anyway, there was this Bartimaeus. He's sitting on the roadside and he's begging, right? And when he heard that it was Jesus of Nazareth, he began to shout, "Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me." Many rebuked him and told him to be quiet. So here's this man. He's blind. He hears, right? He can't see, so he knows the crowd's coming, and Jesus is coming in the crowd. And he hollers, he says, "Jesus, Son of David." Jesus, Son of David. That was a common messianic term, right, or a title that recognized Jesus as the Messiah, because the Jewish people knew that Jesus was going to be, they knew that the Son of God was going to be a son of David, right? So they knew the Messiah was coming through and would be a son of David. So this is Bartimaeus saying, "You're the Messiah," to Jesus. He is admitting in front of all those people that Jesus is the Messiah with this one little thing here. And you see, he was saying this in front of the crowd, and he's a blind man, so he's a beggar, and he's dependent on these people to give him coins and food and stuff. So he doesn't really know, like, these people on board with this man named Jesus or not. I don't care. Jesus, Son of David. Jesus, the Messiah. He's calling out. He don't care what his friends think at this point. He don't care if he's going to go hungry that afternoon because he called upon the name of Jesus. He knows Jesus can heal him, and he knows it in his heart, right? We're going to go on to verse 49. Jesus stopped and said, look. So he hears Bartimaeus. He's calling Jesus, Son of David. And Jesus stopped. How many in here today, this morning, know the Father can't resist the cry of His children? When you cry from the bottom of your heart, the Father can't resist it. It's all throughout the Word. It's all throughout the Word. Jesus stopped and said, call him. He said, call him. He didn't stop and he didn't say, Bartimaeus, come here, boy. He looked at him and said, hey, Danny, call him. I hear him, call him. Go get him. He's telling his friends to call him. He's telling his friends to call him. Right? And maybe this morning you ain't Bartimaeus, you ain't blind. You believe in Jesus and you're in the crowd and you're following him. But there's somebody over there hollering, Jesus, Jesus, I need you. And it's our jobs as Christians to go over there and say he's calling you, because he's calling you. He's calling you. Right? That's our job as Christians. So we're going to read on here. And Jesus said, call him. So they called to the blind man, cheer up. On your feet. He's calling you. Cheer up. Get up. Hey, man, he heard you, dude. Come on. You know, this is like, somebody famous, whoever, sports player or whatever, is coming through Bristol. And you're like, hey, yeah, there's Chipper Jones. Yeah, Chipper. Yeah. And you're doing everything you can. You just want him to look at you. A big one for me was Dale Earnhardt, man. I just wanted Dale to see me, right? Just give me a little bit of that intimidator. And, Dale, hey, intimidator, right? That's what this guy's doing, but yet he can't get up. He's sitting there. And Jesus sees him and says, hey, y'all go get that man right there. Go get him. Get up. And so they're like, hey, man, he sees you. Get up. Let's go. And so he goes. Now listen at this part. Verse 50. We're at verse 50 here. Throwing his cloak aside, he jumped to his feet and came to Jesus, throwing his cloak to the side. Now his cloak, what is his cloak? This is a blind man. He's sitting on the side of the street. And in those times, most everybody wore cloaks. That was to protect you from the sun, the rain, the cold weather, the warm weather. It provided you shade, right? And I even read that back in those times, and Brad, you're the historian rabbi. You may know more than I do. I just Google. It sounded pretty reputable, too, from the source. I can't remember it now. But anyway, that the cloaks, that if you was blind and a beggar, or blind or beggar, or either or, you had a special cloak you had to wear that identified you as that in those times. So the crowd would know to look out for you, right? Hey, blind man coming through, don't trip him. That was how they would do it then. So that's what I read. So anyway, this is his identity. This is his protection. This was very well probably the only possession this man owned to his name. And he heard his buddies say Jesus is calling him. He gets up and he throws it. He throws it to the side. Throws it away. Throws his whole identity away. Everything he's known, everything he owns, everything he is. He leaves it to the side. Throws it away. You see, and the crazy part is, right, he does this before Jesus even healed him. He's still blind at this point, right? That's how much faith this man had in Jesus. He believed in his heart. Jesus knew this already because he's divine. He knows our heart, right? Verse 51. What do you want me to do for you? Jesus asked. The blind man said, Rabbi, I want to see. He said, go. Said Jesus, your faith has healed you. And immediately he received his sight and followed Jesus along the road. He didn't go back over and pick his cloak up and say, it's going to get cold. I may need this. Or if he had a little stick to see or anything. He didn't go back and get nothing. He left it all. He said, I don't need none of that old self no more. I'm out of here. And he followed Jesus. And like in my story, my whole life, Jesus was calling me my whole life. He's been calling me. Not my whole life, thank God, right? I ran long enough, and I'm telling you right now, it hurts to run. And I'll tell you who's at rock bottom, and that's Jesus Christ himself. And it hurts when you hit that place down there. And he'll get to you before you get to the bottom, but he'll take you to the bottom if you need to be there in order for him to get a hold of you. And Jesus was calling me, and my dad was my friend on the side of the road going, he's calling you, man. Give it to God. He's right there. He's calling you. What are you doing? Why are you carrying it? Why are you carrying it? That was Jesus. My dad was my friend telling me Jesus was calling me. And it wasn't until, and this is when I started to learn, it wasn't until after that I really realized that I didn't need to clean myself up for Jesus to accept me. I didn't have to change none of my behavior. I didn't have to say, well, I'm going to go 1 week without saying a cuss word, and if I do that, I'll walk into that church and I know he'll save me. I'll go 24 hours without a cold beer, and I know he'll save me. No, that ain't the way the game's played. Come to him as you are. He'll fix the behavior. It ain't my job to tell somebody to clean themselves up. I know a Savior. And if you trust him, and you love him, and you believe in him, he'll clean you up. And there ain't nothing you got to do about it. You'll wake up clean. It's crazy. I'm telling you, it's wild. So it wasn't until then that I realized that maybe I've been going at this all wrong. Maybe I'm supposed to. I don't have to get clean to go to Jesus. He'll clean me up, and that's what he did. I didn't jump in the shower or hop in there and get baptized real quick before I hit that altar. I come as I was, and I was a broken man when I got here. Christ knew what I was bringing to the table before he even set the table. He knew what was coming down that altar when I started down it. And that's going to bring us to our last one. It's going to be Luke chapter 5. I'm going to start there around verses 27. And this is, so at this time, Jesus is teaching and he's healing along the Sea of Galilee. He's near Capernaum. And at this point, the crowd is just huge. Everybody's getting healed. Everybody's hearing about this Jesus Christ of Nazareth. And everybody's wanting to be healed. So that's where he's at. And he's coming through. I'm going to start verse 27. After this, Jesus went out and saw a tax collector. Some translations say a publican, which is a tax collector, by the name of Levi, sitting at his tax booth. So this man Levi becomes Matthew, right? So this man Levi actually gets renamed to Matthew. Levi's another name for Matthew. There's a lot of history there, Brad. He's the historian. So anyway, this is Levi, but he is Matthew. He's sitting at his tax booth, and I can imagine this. We was talking about San Juan. You get off that cruise boat, and Capernaum would have been a city where there'd have been a lot of sea traffic, boat traffic, right? And you get off, and there's a lot of people around, and there's a booth or a building or something sitting over here, and that's where the tax collector would have been, right? And see, the tax collector was the most hated. They was scum. They stole from a people, and the rule was, right, if here's our tax rate, 10%, but if you tax them 15%, you keep that extra 5% for yourself. And that's the only paycheck, is to rob your boy, so you got to be scum to want to take from your buddies anyway. The lowliest of the low is what the Pharisees actually called them, for extorting his own people. Who does that? So after this, he goes out and he runs into this old boy's tax collector named Levi, and he's sitting there, robbing everybody, collecting his taxes. And Jesus says, listen to this, follow me. Follow me. Well, that's simple. follow me. He didn't say, hey, put that money back where it goes, bud. You know what you're doing's wrong. Divvy this up. Go clean yourself up. Meet me down here at the corner, and I'm going to show you how to live. He didn't say none of that. He said, follow me. Change your ways and follow me. He just said, follow me. So let's see what, and so, where are we at here? Jesus said to him, follow me. And Levi got up and left everything. Now see, when Jesus is calling, we have to respond. We have to respond. And you sit there and think, well, boy, I've heard the call of the Lord before, and I never said a word. I never moved. I felt it up many a time. I need to go to that altar. Nah, I think I just said, boy, they'll judge me. They'll know something's up, you know. I'll get interrogated going out the back door on what I've done. You know, that ain't what, hey, I shouldn't, if I come to this altar right here, the only thing I'm worried about is what I'm looking at, and that's that cross up there. It shouldn't be the eyes back there behind me. I shouldn't be, but I am because I'm flesh, right? I'm man, right? That's the way we do, huh? But we have to respond when Jesus is calling, and guess what? No response is a response. Ooh, no response is a response. Sit over there and ignore him. That's between you and him. But we have to respond. And let's see, Levi, what's he do? Levi, he got up, he left everything, just like Bartimaeus left everything, and followed him. He followed him. And now, this is where it gets good. This is where it gets good. So Levi, he says, I'm going to follow Jesus, right? And he has this, so we go on, and others, and a large, then Jesus held a great banquet, or then Levi held a great banquet for Jesus at his house, and a large crowd of tax collectors and others were eating with him. So Levi gets called. Matthew, he's called out, and he says, hey, Jesus, before we hit the road, let's throw a party, right? Let's have us a hog roast, have us a good old shindig, call the boys up. I want them to meet you because, man, you've changed my life, and I want my friends to know about you. So I'm going to call the boys up, and we're going to have us a party. That's what he done. It says it right here. I mean, I ain't making it up. A great banquet for Jesus. I mean, okay, let's look up another word for banquet. Feast, a party. If you want to come to the Appalachians, a bonfire. You know, I don't know. Right? Put your name in there. So he has this great feast, and guess what? He makes Jesus the guest of honor. So I know he does it for Jesus because, you know, we have birthday parties, and whoever the party's for, Sadie's was just a while back, she was the guest of honor, right? So in this case, Jesus was the guest of honor, and he has this big party for him. And let's read on here, but this party was so big, the Pharisees and scribes showed up. Boy, that's a throwdown there. They getting it down. So they having a big party, and the Pharisees and the teachers show up of the law. Now let's see. And they start questioning these disciples, you know. So I can see them sitting back there in the corner, and they're all high and mighty, and they're going, wait, that's supposed to be the Son of God over there, and he's sitting over there at that, drinking and eating with them folk? Huh? That's the Son of God, and he's doing that? That's what they're asking the Pharisees. Why do you eat and drink with tax collectors and sinners? Some translations actually say scum. That's the church folk saying that. That's the church folk telling the Son of God. What are you doing? Now, I'm going to sidebar here for a minute, right? The Bible says to go out in the world, but don't be transformed by the world. Does that mean Jesus was sitting there drunk? No, I'm not saying that at all. I don't even know if he drank a drink, but I know they was, because the Pharisees and the scribes said they was, right? So they're having this big party, and they say, why are you running around with them folks? They ain't no good. That's scum, man. They robbing from our people. What are you doing? Let's see what Jesus says. He steps on scene. Here he comes, about verse 31. when King Jesus arrives, let's see what he says, and he's divine. So he may not even been in the same area as them of this big room, because it would have been a big house. So I can hear him now, and he answered them. He says, "It is not the healthy who need a doctor. I didn't come here to make the healthy well." He says, "I have not come to call the righteous, but sinners to repentance." Jesus just told the Pharisees, "I didn't come here for you. I ain't got nothing for you. You hard-hearted, righteous, self-righteous thing. I come here for these folks that are sick. They know they need a doctor." And he just stepped in the house. It's neat that show Chosen and stuff, to kind of visualize how all this would have went down. Some of us may think of it as a tent. This would have been a big house, man. Tax collectors were rich. That's why they were hated. We think of a tax collector, "Hey man, you care to throw me an extra $5 on this, and I got to buy some hog slop this afternoon." No, these jokers were rich. All right, so this would have been a big room like this, full of people. And the Pharisees and the Sanhedrin over there, and Jesus is calling them out. "I didn't come here for the healthy. I come here for the sick. And you're righteous, self-righteous, so I ain't got nothing for you. You don't even know you're sick." Right? That's what he was saying. And even Jesus knew, I wrote this out here, Jesus knew they wasn't going to be bringing chicken pot pie and mashed taters and green beans and coleslaw to the party. All right? If we look at the heart of Jesus, Jesus looks at the heart. He knew they was going to be bringing a side of anger or a dish of depression. Right? He knew he was going to be bringing a tray of envy or lust or pride or greed. He knew they was bringing the mess before they even got there. Right? He knew what they was bringing. And look, he still chose to sit with them. And just like this morning, he still chooses to sit with you. With you. And he's calling you. I am the least of these, folks. I am the least of these. I'm no one special at all. I am the least of these. And he's calling me. And he's calling you into a relationship with him. And Jesus knows that there's going to be challenges. All right? There's going to be challenges when we first step into Christianity. Right? We're going to battle with the flesh. Paul battled with it forever. I mean, he read Romans. He finally got so mad, he said, "I wished I could die. Like, God, kill this flesh right now and raise me up in the spirit," because he was so sick of fighting it. Jesus knew he was going to get a challenge. He knew what we was going to be bringing to the table when we came. And you say, "I'm so far gone. I've been living like this for years." He still says, "Come." "Nah, I drank too much last night." "Come." "Nah, I had those thoughts this morning." "Come. Come." He knows the dish you're bringing. He already knows it. He knows what you're thinking. I'm not talking about the dish of addiction, meaning just drugs and alcohol. I'm talking to the one that's going to bring that dish of addiction that's addicted to an image, right? Who thinks you have to be something in order to be accepted, right? You're addicted to a phone and you find yourself sitting there hours on end going, "What am I doing?" Right? Or you're addicted to attention, and if you ain't getting it, you're going to do whatever you got to do to get it. Right? Or you're bitter. He knew you was going to bring the side of bitterness. Or at your core, you're broken. And you're brokenhearted. And you wake up in the morning and you go, "I got it this morning. I feel good." And you get in the car and that song comes on, or somebody says something, and it hits you again, and you get knocked right back down again. But the next morning, you're like, "It's okay, I'm going to do better today." And every day, you just get more and more broken. And you bring that in here, and you say, "God, are you going to sit with me today? With me? I'm a broken mess. Am I going to hear from you today? Me, the God of heaven, is going to talk to me in my mess? I'm here to tell you, yes. The answer is yes. He is going to, and He wants to. Or maybe you're that person that you bring that big old helping of insecurity. And you say, God, I know I'm not good enough. I don't look like him, or I don't talk like her, or I don't act like him, and I don't drive that nice car. And you're so insecure with yourself, you can't make no decisions because you're just like, I don't fit in. Nobody likes me. And you bring that, you've placed your value of yourself on someone else and not what the King of Heaven says. And the King of Heaven says that you are a child of the Most High God. And He loves you, and you are fearfully and wonderfully made. And He breathed His life into your lungs, and He says you are mine, and He loves you. And He's here today, right now, and some 2,000 years ago, this God stepped down off of heaven, and He hung on an old rugged cross on Skull Mountain, and He bore every stripe. He was disemboweled, folks. The man was unrecognizable as a man. His guts was hanging out of Him. I'll put it to you in simple terms. You couldn't even tell He was male or female. And He hung there, and they still couldn't kill this man who breathed His life into you. This morning He's sitting here. Today. And He conquered hell and death and the grave, and He rose 3 days later, and He ascended into heaven, and He's seated right now on the right-hand side of God the Father Himself, and He is praying and interceding for us. That's who you are. Don't let the world tell you you're less than anything. You are who He says you are, and you're everything to Him. That's who He is. Throw that dish to the side. And we bring the dish of pride in here. And maybe, just maybe, you're the one person who has the unfortunate problem of not having any problems at all, and you get to bring that big, unpleasant dish of self-righteousness and throw it down on the table and say, here I am, God. Don't let them see me. Don't let them know who I am. Right? And He says, bring it to me. I want it. I'm going to take it, and I'm going to change your life forever. And what amazes me is that, like I said in the worship team, if you all want to start making your way up, it amazes me that all through Scripture, Jesus calls the lowly. He calls the brokenhearted. He calls the weak. And He called me. Folks, He called me. And He's calling you. And He says, the table has been set. He set the table, and He says, I know what you're bringing to it, but I want you to come anyway. Because I love you. I love you, and I don't want to see you struggle with this. And he chooses to sit with you, and in spite of all the junk, He still loves me and you. And it's not because of anything I've ever done. It's not because of anything you've ever done. I can't never do anything. None of us can. No, you can't get there by works. You can't get there by works. And a very prominent man, just said the other day, and it blows me away, if I do all this good, maybe I can get into heaven. Maybe God will let me in if I do all this. Fiddle. Maybe God will let me in. You want me to tell you how I'm going to get to heaven? When I get there, I ain't going to say, well, God, you know, I preached all these sermons. I'm going to say, the only reason I got an opportunity to walk through them gates is because that man on the middle cross. They ain't a thing I could have ever done then, now, nor ever do that can get me to deserve to go into them, except through the love of the Father and Jesus Christ Himself. And I'm telling you this morning, the table has been set. He is calling you. He's calling you into a relationship with Him. He's calling you out of an old life. Maybe you've done give your heart to God, but you feel 1,000,000 miles away. The Holy Spirit is wooing you, and the table has been set. The question is, how will you respond? And remember, no response is a response.